My family was planning to order takeout. It was one of those evenings when the air felt lighter than usual, the kind of night where everyone is gathered together and the small comforts of food, laughter, and company weave themselves into something memorable. The living room was filled with voices overlapping each other, suggestions flying from one corner to another. Pizza, someone shouted. Chinese food, another added. The sound of cousins giggling filled the air as they argued over ice cream flavors, while the adults weighed the options like it was a world-shaking decision. My sister leaned closer to her kids, as though their voices were the most important in the room, and asked them directly, "What do you want?" They didn't hesitate for even a moment. Their answers shot out like fireworks, bright, clear, confident. "Pizza with extra cheese," said one. "Noodles and dumplings," shouted the other. Their faces lit up with excitement, their eyes glowing with the knowledge that their wishes mattered and would likely shape the final choice. Meanwhile, my own kids sat quietly beside me, watching the flurry of excitement around them. Their hands fidgeted in their laps. Their gazes bounced from the colorful menus on the table to the cousins whose words seemed to carry weight. I could feel them holding back, their lips pressed together as if waiting for permission to open. Their eyes seemed to ask, "Will anyone turn to us? Will our choices matter too?" They waited. Waited as though time itself might decide for them. Waited as though the space they occupied wasn't enough to give them a voice. Waited because, somewhere deep inside, they weren't sure if speaking up would change anything at all. And in that small, ordinary pause, so brief it could have been missed, I felt something powerful stir in me. That waiting wasn't just about takeout. It wasn't just about food. It was a reflection of something greater, something I've seen in so many moments of life. How often do we wait the same way? How often do we sit silently while others make the choices, as if their voices ring louder, clearer, more worthy? How many times have we swallowed our opinions, tucked away our desires, convinced ourselves that it's easier to let others decide? That maybe our needs don't matter as much. I saw it right there in my children's hesitation, the story of countless people who hold their dreams quietly in their hearts, never daring to speak them out loud. And my chest ached because I know that waiting too well. Would you like me to keep expanding in this same flowing tone, carrying it naturally toward the turning point where the kids finally speak up? My sister's kids had spoken up so quickly, so effortlessly, like their words were always meant to be heard. Their voices rose above the chatter in the room, and no one questioned them. No one asked them to repeat themselves. No one dismissed what they wanted. It struck me how natural it seemed for them to take up space, how easily they wore their confidence. Beside me, though, my children sat still, as if caught between longing and hesitation. I could almost read the unspoken dialogue in their minds. They wanted to say something, I knew that much. The sparkle in their eyes whenever the menu was mentioned gave them away. But when the moment came, when their turn should have slipped naturally into the flow of conversation, their lips stayed sealed. It wasn't because they didn't know what they wanted. It wasn't because they didn't care. It was because they weren't sure if their voice would carry the same weight. Their cousins had spoken with such clarity, such conviction, that my kids seemed to shrink back, their thoughts trapped inside, waiting for someone else to notice them. They glanced at me once or twice, little flashes of searching eyes, as though asking silently, "Is it okay? Do I get to choose too?" And in that silence, I felt a pang deep in my chest. 'Cause I recognized it. I had seen it in myself before, in my own hesitations, the pause before raising a hand, the moment of second-guessing before sharing an opinion, the quiet surrender of letting others decide because it felt easier than risking rejection. My kids weren't lacking desires. They were lacking permission. Not permission from me, not really, but permission from themselves to believe that their voices mattered just as much as anyone else's. And so they waited. Not because they didn't know the answer, but because they weren't sure if they were allowed to speak it. And in that waiting, something unfolded inside me. It was as though a mirror had been held up, not just to my children, but to the way so many of us move through life. We wait. We pause at the edge of opportunities, convincing ourselves that someone else will step forward more boldly, more rightly, more deserving. We hold back the words pressing against our lips, telling ourselves it's better to stay quiet than to risk sounding foolish or inconvenient. We shrink, not because we lack dreams, but because we doubt they will matter once spoken aloud. I thought about how often I had done the same, sitting in meetings where ideas swirled like a storm, and mine burned in silence, tucked away because I wasn't sure they would carry weight. I remembered friendships where I longed to say what I truly felt but chose to nod instead, to blend into agreement because it felt safer than standing out. I thought of prayers I had whispered quietly, almost timidly, as though even God needed me to apologize for asking too much. My children's silence became a living metaphor in that moment. It wasn't about burgers or fries, pizza or noodles. It was about the hesitation that steals life from us piece by piece. It was about the belief that our voice is optional, that our opinions are secondary, that our desires can wait until everyone else has chosen. That kind of waiting may seem small in the moment, but it grows roots. It teaches us to doubt ourselves, to retreat when life invites us forward, to settle for less when we were meant for more. As I watched my kids, I saw not just their hesitation, but the countless moments ahead where this same choice might appear in bigger ways. In classrooms, in friendships, in future dreams. Would they speak? Or would they wait? Would they step boldly into the life offered to them? Or would they linger at the edges, hoping someone else would hand them permission? That thought unsettled me because I knew the truth. Life doesn't pause for the hesitant. Opportunities rarely circle back for the silent. The world keeps moving, and if you don't speak, someone else will. I leaned toward my kids, my voice soft enough for only them to hear, and I whispered, "Your voice matters. Tell us what you want." For a moment they just looked at me, as if weighing whether I truly meant it. Their eyes flickered with a mixture of hope and uncertainty, like a door half open, waiting to see if it was safe to step through. One of them pressed their lips together, then let out the tiniest answer, almost like a secret. "Burgers." The word slipped out so fragile I almost missed it. But it was there, a spark breaking through the silence. Another followed, braver this time. "Fries." The words grew stronger as they left their mouths, as if each syllable carried not just food preferences, but proof that they had something worth saying. I caught the smiles tugging at the corners of their lips, the way their shoulders lifted ever so slightly, lighter now that the weight of waiting had been released. The hesitation that had wrapped around them began to loosen, and in its place, I saw confidence stirring, even if just a little. It wasn't about what they ordered. It was about knowing they could order. The room didn't erupt in protests. No one dismissed their choices. In fact, their words were folded into the conversation just like everyone else's. Their cousins kept chattering, the adults laughed, the menu kept passing around, and yet something subtle had shifted. My kids realized their voices didn't cause disruption, they created belonging. I sat back quietly, letting the moment stretch, and watched them. The bravery of speaking up once had opened the door for them to believe it could happen again. It was a small victory, yes, but I knew these victories add up. It's in the little moments, ordering food, asking questions, naming what you want, that the muscle of confidence grows. And I felt proud, not because they wanted burgers and fries, but because they had found the courage to let the world hear it. That moment was more than just about food. It was about something far greater, something that lives at the core of who we are and how we choose to exist in this world. Watching my kids speak up, I realized how easily we mistake silence for safety. How often we convince ourselves that staying quiet spares us from judgment, conflict, or rejection. But silence doesn't protect us, it robs us. It steals the chance to be seen, to be heard, to take part in shaping the world around us. Their cousins weren't louder because they were more important. They were louder because they believed their voices carried weight. That belief made the difference. And isn't that the same for all of us? The world rarely separates people by talent or worth as much as it separates them by belief. Belief in whether or not they deserve to speak, to act, to dream out loud. Life doesn't reward the ones who wait patiently in the corner, hoping to be noticed. It rewards the ones who raise their hand, who take the risk of saying, "This is what I want. This is who I am." My kids learned that night in the smallest of ways, that their words could shape the outcome, that their presence could tilt the room, that their desires mattered. And that lesson, if carried with them, would serve them far beyond any dinner table. And isn't that the lesson we all need? To stop waiting for the perfect moment, for the invitation, for the assurance that it's safe. To understand that every time we withhold our voice, we let the world miss out on a piece of us. To recognize that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to speak anyway. So whether it's a classroom, a workplace, a family gathering, or the quiet corners of your own heart, dare to speak. Dare to name what you want. Dare to believe that your voice carries as much value as anyone else's. Because if you don't, life will keep moving, decisions will keep being made, and you'll still be waiting in silence while the world feasts without your input.